So what else is on your mind?
Okay, for me, it's more of an exercise thing.
Right. Okay.
So it's not necessarily a myth, but it's more of a fashion. So obviously, you see
Okay.
people uploading video content to Instagram, and some of the technique, looks really really good in terms of how the pattern and mechanically it needs to look. But then I see this really bad habit with the breath work, and it's something that I kind of, if you look at powerlifting, for example, we talk about maybe nasal breathing is slightly better for creating intra-abdominal pressure, but also
Yeah.
allowing the bar to stay static in space.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, I call it the Hollywood brace. So somebody walks out, you get tight on the bar, and anybody that's squatted effectively or comes from a strength and conditioning
Yeah.
background, you'll
Yeah.
know. You get into the bar, you find the space, you take your feet through, you take your first brace as if you were going to do a squat to get it off the J hooks. Then you take your small steps, and within 3 steps, you should be finding your chalk line.
Yeah. We call that the three step, two step walkout. Yeah.
Right. All the while, the bar is just moving nice and stable into that
Yeah.
space. You don't
Hmm.
want all this because it's just going to lead to unnecessary over recruitment. So you want to keep
Right.
the
Yep.
bar
Agreed.
nice and placid, right? So we find then that our chalk lines, and then we're ready to squat. So then this is what I see. So people's maybe done their walkout, and I'm like, that looks pretty good, and then they do this, and they take this big gasp of air, mouth opens, rib cage inflates, shoulders and bar lifts in the space. So you've done all this good stuff to get into position, and then you've undone it with this Hollywood brace. Whereas a good lifter will bring it out, and it'll be, so whenever you nasal breathe, you'll
Mm.
feel your abdomen inflate rather than the rib cage. The bar stays nice and static, and then you're ready to squat. And I've seen the same then whenever people are doing things like hack squats. So at the top of the hack squat, you are very, very strong mechanically, obviously, because the joints, the moment
Yeah.
on.
You're locked out. You're holding it. Yeah.
So they're at the top, they go like they're about to submerge underwater.
Mm.
They're doing this 5 6 second slow negative until they're at the bottom. Three quarters of the negative is done. So you've spent most of the time where you're strong, and then as you get to the bottom where you're mechanically weaker, you start speeding up and bounce back out again.
And you use a band so that you can bounce back out again
Yeah,
at the bottom
those
too.
people love that reverse band. But for me, I'm like going, right, if you're going to do a 10 rep set, and every rep you're going to breathe and brace here, do a 6 7 second negative. You've got, if it, in a 10 rep set, a 7 second negative, you're holding your breath for at least 70 seconds of that
Yeah.
set. Whereas I try to coach it where even with a heavy weight, you should try to find a breath and brace pattern. So on the way down, I might be doing two small micro breaths. And whenever I start getting into the more difficult component of that rep, that's whenever I'm going to breath and brace and drive back out. So now I've only got 2 to 3 seconds max of holding breath. But a lot of these guys are doing it because it's a Hollywood brace. It's like, but
I think there's an overloading going. Well, it's clearly overloading. But one of the most important things, I'm good at squatting. Like I've squatted 240. It's a good squat. And I've done reps of 200 and everything like that. But when I squat for bodybuilding, I will do a set of 10 or whatever it is that I'm doing. And I will literally go down, have a slight pause at bottom, come back up, go down, go back up, and then try and be very smooth
yeah,
like butter because I'm very conscious that when I get to that top of the rep, if I'm pausing to take a breath, it's like doing a bit set of bicep curls where you go here, come all the way down, tension, 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 lose the tension, wait a couple of seconds, and go again, right? It's
100%.
inefficient in terms of recruitment
Yeah,
to build the muscle. Um, but there's certain exercises where we deem it acceptable to do that sort of thing. So you're probably overloading in terms of the total amount of weight that you're using in that pattern. Now, it's goal specific. Because if you're doing 5 or 6 reps or 2 or 3 reps, that is different because it's strength training, it's powerlifting, etc. And maybe you want that's a rep target you're aiming for, and that changes everything. But if it's bodybuilding and we're doing really slow negatives and things like that, then we're probably looking at really just having micro pauses at the top, or certainly 1 second pauses to keep that tension on the muscle all the way throughout, so we're not getting the rest on there. So I thought that was an important thing to add on there. I used to do strongman, right? And I loved strongman. It was great fun. It's fucking amazing, actually. Some of the most fun training you can ever have is doing strongman stuff. There's just something primal about lifting a big log and putting it above your head, right? It's like you're like a big child doing this
Yeah.
sort of stuff, right? I remember doing Atlas stones with my friends, and we were scheduled in to do 3 sets with the 130 Atlas stone. And I think we were on the second set, and it was the third rep I was going for. I'd done the first set of three, second rep of the set of three, and then I went for the third rep. I got it all the way up to here, fainted, passed out. Right now, I have watched a boy called Michael drop a 140 Atlas stone on his knee in competition, and an ambulance having to turn up, right? My big friend Phil Roberts dropped a 160 Atlas stone on his thigh, snapped his tibia and fibula in half. Okay. This is serious shit. That could have been an absolute disaster. Now, I got lucky because my friends were there, and I somehow, when I fell over, I dropped the weight to the side. But they caught me when I was there, right? I was holding my breath doing that lift and just straining and straining and straining, right? And look, this should be obvious, right? You're not a fish, and even fish need oxygen to breathe.
Yeah.
Right? So your brain does not work efficiently when you do not take in a breath and breathe, right? Your muscles do not get the oxygen delivered to them effectively so that you can dissipate lactic acid, so you can generate energy when you don't get the oxygen to them. And although your movements are anaerobic in nature when you're doing those sets, there's still an aerobic component because it doesn't get completely switched off. So it's so important to breathe. And I learned to breathe the hard way after I did that. I
Yeah.
started taking this sort of stuff much more seriously after that. So I don't do as much of that Hollywood breathing on there. Now, just a few other kind of points on this I think are important. If you're at a powerlifting event and you do your lockout and you go, you feel the lift, that's you done.
Yeah.
Because you started your lift and gone out, right? So that doesn't cut the mustard. So powerlifters don't lift like that.
Yeah.
Actual legitimate ones, because you've already started the lift and then ended the lift and said that's a fail. Yeah. So it's something that comes from the bodybuilding community. So I guess the point I want to come in here now and say is like, how can people train this, James, to get past this point? Is what are your solutions? Is it they just need to lift lighter and more effectively? Because I know a lot of people just do things for the gram and they want the hits.
Well, I used one of my clients, David Jackson. You met a few times over. David came to me, little bit of lifting experience before, but very unhealthy, a lot of like overweight, etc., etc. I started working with him, started getting him into a really healthy spot. And I says, look, my ambition is to teach you how to lift. My ambition is to give you all the tools that you will need, teach the man to fish, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So
he wanted the squat, and he says, "Oh, I used to squat all the time," and blah blah blah. And I says, "Well, show me your squat," and walked it out. And I went, "Right, there's 14 things wrong with that lift, right?"
I got 99 problems in
Yeah, and the squat ain't one.
Squat ain't one.
So I went, you have 14 problems in your squat, and there's 9 of them before you even get to the squat. And so a lot of it was the approach to the bar, how he engaged with the bar, how he breathed to unrack the bar, how he walked out into space. I call them your chalk lines. Wherever you find
I know what you mean.
Position, you just imagine once you drew chalk lines around it, every time you walk out, even in a dark room, you could find those instinctively. That's your best foot position to generate the most amount of vertical force, okay? So I spent, much to his dislike, but he was patient enough, I spent almost 3 months just on his walkout. And I says, if we're patient with this, the squat is going to be easy to teach because there's only a few fixes I need to make. If we get that right and find efficiency, then we'll develop the squat, and your rate of progress will be so much quicker. So it'll be like the tortoise and the hare. And he came out of that after, yeah. So let's fast forward a year later. He does his first rookie comp in powerlifting with the NIPF,
Mm-hmm.
smashes everybody. So he ended up with a 240 something squat in comp,
Brilliant squat.
in comp 240 something deadlift.
Yep.
The bench is the one that he was still trying to develop. I think it was a 127, or it was either 127 or 132. And that's just because we took our time with the lift. So my thing to people is research your walkout. Don't run before you can walk. Don't squat before you can walk it out. Right? That's the new phrase. Don't squat before you can walk it out. Work on your walkout. Make sure that you know how to engage the bar. Find this exact space across those traps that suit you, whether it's a low bar or a high bar that you feel better with, and become familiar with how that feels to walk out, and define instinctively your chalk lines, and then start working on your squat. So do it in order.
Okay. I think that's good advice there on there. I'll add another little anecdote in here. I was and I'll do you know what? I'm going to keep this vague so that the person can't be identified. I did a conference and I had mentioned that I had a background in power building essentially. That's my first thing was. So I've done strongman, I've done powerlifting and all this sort of stuff. And the guy was like, I don't really care about that stuff because and this is a pro bodybuilder, natural pro bodybuilder. And I was like, well, you should care about this sort of stuff. All I care about is building muscle. I was like, look, that's quite ignorant for a start. But my background, having done strongman and powerlifting, allows me to approach problems in a completely different way from your average bodybuilder. So it's important that you get out your wheelhouse sometimes, right? Because I've worked with so many strong bodybuilders that are just afraid of squatting, and but they don't know concepts like, oh, I could high bar squat, I could low bar squat, I could mid bar squat, I could go closer with um, my feet, for example, and so on and so forth on this. And one of the big concepts you get in powerlifting is this concept of stability. Yeah. And there's this idea like, look, if you're not stable when you're lifting that bar and you can't stabilize effectively, then you lose force generation in the pattern that you're going for, right? Hence why you're talking like if that bar's going all over the place and wobbling, or if you're not moving in an efficient pattern, then you'll struggle, right? So like just getting out your wheelhouse sometime and learning from powerlifters and strongmen and stuff like that on how to execute movements effectively can be so useful. And at the weekend there, you did a great little demonstration with a rubber band, and the guys that I was working with really struggled with it. But because of the amount of time that I've done powerlifting, and the exercise was we're going to do an incline press with a rubber band around our shoulders. That creates a little bit of instability, but it might increase our recruitment, and actually it'll get more challenging through that concentric phase and less challenging for the eccentric phase. Because I've done a lot of earthquake bars where you put weights on the end of the bar or the bar's really wobbly and it goes all over the place.
Yeah.
As soon as I went on that, I was like, I can hold this in a pattern really stably. In the same way that I get a set of dumbbells, I can just keep them where they need to be. And touch wood, I've never had any rotator cuff injuries or anything like that. Some of that's probably genetic, but it's just good technique. And I've done a lot of those movements which have really helped stabilize so I can put the force where it needs to go.